Hello everyone, I'm Emily.
And I'm Hannah.
And we are the hosts of the I Don't Think So podcast, where we decide if we think a conspiracy theory is believable or if we really don't think so.
Here at the I Don't Think So podcast, we are affiliated with Flurry Sports, and we present our theories on your favorite place to listen to podcasts every Wednesday. If you like what you hear, give us a like, share, and definitely follow us on our Twitter at I Don't Think So _EH.
Mm-hmm.
Emily's back!
I'm back!
Thank God.
Listen, I listened to our podcast, and by our podcast, I mean your podcast last week, and it was super good. You did a very good job by yourself. You're becoming quite the podcaster.
Thank you.
Good for you. Well, Hannah, I did not know what I wanted to do, but obviously we're talking about, like, I went to Wyoming, and it was very, like, arid and dry. It was beautiful, but I wanted to do something a little, like, similar deserty vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So today I wanted to talk to you about one of the most infamous mines in American history, supposedly.
Oh.
Have you ever heard of the Dutchman's gold mine?
No. Which, honestly, I'm surprised. So anyone who knows me, my father-in-law is, or was, he's now retired, a geological engineer. So he talks about mines, and my husband talks about mines, and so I'm honestly surprised I've never heard of it. But they do more like iron ore, copper, nickel, those types of things, not gold.
Not gold.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this is coming off the coattails of, and I'll explain the backstory a little bit on it and then tell you there's about 3 conspiracies that kind of follow the Dutchman's mine, including, well, I guess 4. One of it is existence, if it's real or not. And the others are kind of how it was acquired.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So the Dutchman mine is supposedly a treasure trove that was once hidden in the Superstition Mountains just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. It was thought to be first found by a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, who he kind of lived and worked in the area. And ever since he died, no one has been able to find it since.
Okay.
So we'll talk about Jacob and kind of the history of the Superstition Mountains and the gold rush. Then we'll kind of get into the conspiracies that follow it. So, Jacob Waltz was a German immigrant. He was a German immigrant.
1 week off, I can't read.
I know. What are you gonna do? And now I've lost my spot. Here we go.
So he's a German immigrant.
He's a German immigrant. He came over with his friend, Jacob Weiser.
Oh, I don't like that.
I know, the 2 Jacobs coming on over. And they came over because Germany was very impoverished. It was at the time, like, Napoleon had gone through and burnt down basically everything. So they were coming to America to basically make it rich.
Okay.
They started on the East Coast, and, like, were able to pay for their fare over, but that was about it. They were very poor. So that was around the time the gold rush in California started.
Okay.
So they're like, let's go do that. Let's go to the gold rush. And by the time they had got there, it was pretty well picked over. So it's not like they found fortune there either. So they were like, frick, I don't know what the hell's going on. So both of them then decide they're going to move down to Arizona, where they feel like there are some untapped mines there, and they can maybe make a bit better of a profit. And to be honest with you, they did make okay money. Their first attempt, they struck gold, and at the time, about every man got about $3,000.
That's pretty good.
Which was really good money for them at the time. So they ended up settling kind of in, like, the Phoenix area, and he was making enough money at the time, both him and Weiser, where they were living comfortably, but not necessarily lavishly. Like, they were making enough money to, like, own a humble home and have some land, but they weren't necessarily, like, rolling in the dough.
Yep.
So one day, these two men, Weiser and Waltz, go off into the desert, supposedly going to the Superstition Mountains, where they're going to go look for gold. They get there. No one really knows what happens. Supposedly, Waltz comes back, but Weiser never is found again.
Ooh.
This is also during the time where there was a lot of conflicts between like Apache, Native American tribes, as well as settlers.
Yeah.
So Waltz's story was that they were down in one of the mines, they got separated, and when he came back, Weiser was just gone.
Okay.
And he had assumed that like
a Native American group might
have captured him, killed him, taken him, whatever. So he came back, and at that point he was seen to be kind of a hermit. Like he never Waltz was? Okay. Yeah. He never really came out of his house. He didn't have any friends. And he was relatively believed to be kind of just a like grieving old man.
Okay.
But that's when some weird stuff started to happen. So Waltz appeared to be living out of his economic status. So he had purchased that house, and it was humble, but throughout the 1870s, he added on a lot of luxuries. So he was growing expensive barley, he had his own chickens, he had ducks, he had cows, he even had a big supply of vegetables, and that's not normal for the era or time period or the area even. Like that was just not
people didn't do that.
People didn't have that, especially someone who was not making that much money. Another like weird thing is no one could tell where he was getting his money from because he never went to the bank.
Okay.
So they were like, he just never went to a bank, but he always had money and he always paid things up front.
In cash.
In cash. He was good. Like he had the money, but it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So this time it got even more weird because he went to the bank one time and transferred $7,000 to his sister, just like at the drop of a hat. And people are like, where
are you getting all this money? Yeah.
Where in the world would you get all this kind of money? And then all of a sudden, Waltz just gets on a mule and heads out. He didn't tell anyone he was going. He didn't give anybody an explanation. He just took off. And everyone's like, what do you mean? And so then all of a sudden he comes back and everything is normal again. He starts adding more luxuries onto his home. No one knew where he went. Everyone was just like, what do you mean? Where are you getting this money from? And he really wasn't telling anybody anything ever. So Jacob Waltz is just kind of a hermit, not doing anything, doesn't have any friends. He meets this woman, and I'm blanking on her first name, but her last name is Thompson. And she has a foster son because her husband left her and took all her money. And she's a struggling baker, and he takes pity on her, pulls her into the bakery, has her like pull all the shades, and opens up this little package, and it's just gold. Like mounds of gold, assumed to be worth like $1,400.
Wow.
So she could pay off all her debts, which is just weird. It didn't make sense. It was weird. So it's not unheard of for there to be gold in the Superstition Mountains. There was actually these two guys who were coming to Arizona as well to try and strike it rich. They went into this gentleman's mining site, and they were like, we just want a job because we need money. We don't have any mining experience. We just need a job. And he was like, well, okay. Sounds like a plan. But they did not take the normal route to get to Arizona. They took a direct passage through the Superstition Mountains. They said it was super hard of a journey, and it was awful, full of deep canyons, really rough terrain. But while they were walking through, they found a really old, deep mine full of shiny rocks. And I don't know why. Wait, maybe with the no mining experience, they like had no idea
it was gold.
what it was. So they were like, whatever. So they shoved a bunch of it in their pockets and just was like, "Can you look at this and tell me what it is?" And the guy, the mine owner, was like, "That is gold, and you would make so much more money not working for me, turning around and going back to that mine." So it wasn't as profitable as I think they hoped, because they went back to the mountains and they hadn't heard anything. Like, this Mr. Mason is the guy who owns the mining company.
Okay.
Hadn't heard anything from him.
Okay.
It was supposed to take a week and a half. And so he sent people out there. They couldn't find him. They finally found one of the men dead. He was completely stripped naked and had been shot twice.
Wow.
They never found the other guy.
Okay.
So they never really had any theories about how these two guys died, but again, it was all kind of assumed that, like, the Native American tribes were either against it, or that gold was driving somebody so mad that they were not willing to share this mine. So those two guys died. Going back to Jacob Waltz. So Mr. Waltz, like, had a lot of people starting to question, like, this guy's gotta have a mine somewhere. And so people would follow him.
Okay.
And he had turned around on these two men and told them that if they kept following him, he was going to shoot them. And he became even more like of a hermit and aloof. He just was so weird. He was a weird, weird man. Except for Julia is her first name. Julia Thomas was the baker. She and her son were like his BFFs.
And so he gave him a bunch of money.
He gave them money, whatever. Well, one day she doesn't hear from him for like multiple days. So she sends her son to go check on him, and his house had become flooded. And at this time, he's
in
like,
Arizona.
I know. He's like 80 years old.
Okay.
And he had gotten pneumonia.
Oh.
So she brings him back to the bakeries, trying to care for him. But at that point, it was kind of too far, too gone. So Waltz begins to tell her all about his mine that he's found, and that there's so much more money to be had. And they're like, okay. And he's like, no, no, no. Go under my very lavish fireplace. There's gold under there, and there's gold under my bed. And they go in, and there was like buckets of gold in coffee cans and just like scattered about the house. And so it kind of was one of those things that they're like, well, I didn't believe you before, but with all this raw gold, I have to believe you. So she goes back, tries to like help him, aid him a little bit. He ends up dying before he can ever show her where the gold is. But he drew her a map, and like, it's claimed to be that on his deathbed, he also told a different man that he had a mine, and here it was to find it. So he died, took that secret with him, supposedly. And then no one since has been able to find that mine. Julia Thompson sold her bakery so she could fund an expedition to go out and look for it. Lost everything. Never found it.
Wow.
This Holmes is the guy he supposedly told on his deathbed.
Sherlock.
Just kidding. That this is where he is, like, this is where it was. Don't worry about it. He never found it. His son never found it.
That's crazy.
It's estimated that there's 8,000 people per year go and try and find this mine. And none have found it. People have claimed they found it, but like never have any proof.
The gold to back it up, yeah.
No. So let me get into, there's, like I said, 3 major conspiracies about this mine and this money. And now that you have a little bit of the backstory, I'll kind of move on to our conspiracies. So number 1, Waltz was actually a murderer. Hello, everybody. Oopsie. That he was actually a murderer. And he was just a gold-hungry jerk. So this was a story that was published in the papers.
Okay.
About him being a bad dude. So one day in 1871, it's believed that Waltz and his friend Weiser went out prospecting in the Superstition Mountains, and like they had previously joined a mining group and then relocated to Phoenix and hadn't been making much money, and the gold deposits were really picked over, and they just were like, I need to make it rich. I didn't come all the way from Germany to be poor my entire life. So they felt like if they went into the superstitions, which were really dangerous and hard to navigate, that if they found a mine, it'd be theirs. So they allegedly spent a few days wandering around the canyons and the hills for mineral deposits, and they were unsuccessful until one evening while they were camping and they heard the sound of metal hitting ore, or like you could hear someone mining.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew two things: that A, there was something worth digging for out there, and B, they were not the first to find it.
Sure.
So they followed the sound of the pickaxe to a canyon down by the river, and up there is called Weaver's Needle. It's a volcanic rock formation. They saw two men digging away at the hillside. By the looks of it, they had found a gold mine. The problem was that these men were out there because they also didn't want to share. So they knew they weren't going to share with Walt and Weiser.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I said, they're like, I am too poor and traveled too far to let it go. So Walt urged Weiser to grab his gun and then shot the two other miners who fell to the ground. Now, you may remember my earlier story of a man being shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of their...
They think that maybe they're connected?
Yes. So they look into this mine, and it's full of gold. But I'm guessing Jacob Waltz didn't feel super great about the fact that he had just killed two men and now still had to split his pot. So immediately he might have planned like, oh, I'll split it with, Weiser. Nobody's the issue. Except
Weiser never came back.
Why did Weiser never come back? So the story goes that Waltz did the unthinkable, pulled out his rifle and turned it onto his lifelong partner and shot Weiser dead. It felt like some people were like, oh, this is too far-fetched. Like, they had no reason to quarrel. They traveled for so long, blah, blah, blah. But it's completely possible. And especially with the fact that his demeanor had changed so much over the time that Walt's killing Weiser might not be as far-fetched as it could have been. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, the second one is that Waltz, and there's not as much information on the other two, was that Waltz had been given a map by a very rich Hispanic family who had owned the mine at some point in time. That was the second one. There's not a ton of information on it, so I'm not really going to go into it. And the third was that there was someone out there who already knew about the mine, and that's why Waltz had to go alone. And it wasn't that Waltz killed everybody. It's that this like mysterious third person did. So there is a story about this doctor who helped in World War I. And he was during like the Apache and Settlers War. He was honored because he wouldn't just treat the settlers. He also treated Apaches.
Okay.
And so the Apache natives after the war said, like, we want to give you something. So they blindfold this doctor, put him on a horseback, and just like shoo him off into the mountains, basically. And he traveled for multiple days, completely blindfolded, didn't know where he was going, which I'm telling you, could not be me.
No.
But so they travel and they finally stop. He takes his thing off, and it's a gold mine. And the Native Americans say, take as much as you can carry. This is like all for you.
Well.
So it's believed that he was brought by the Apache natives to this area to do that. It is believed that it could possibly be that Apache natives were bringing folks here as a gift.
If they did something for them.
Because knowing the significance and the value of like gold, and knowing that it was important to settlers was like all the rage, you know? So it's believed that someone, whether it was that doctor or somebody else, had remembered where the mine was and had gotten so greedy that every time someone found it, they were shot and killed, leaving only Waltz, and which would make sense for him being an absolute recluse because he's terrified that somebody's going to come and kill him for finding their precious mine. So that's the story of a lost Dutchman. Also, he's called the Dutchman even though he's from Germany because that was just like a euphemism back in the day for anybody from like Germanic descent is Dutchman. But now you think it's like
a Dutch person.
A Dutch person. But back in the day, everybody, you were Dutch, we were Dutch. Very. So that's why it's called the Dutchman's
Mine. Or whatever. Interesting. I do feel like, let me think. Trying to get my thoughts together.
So many.
I think like the whole Hispanic family giving him the map seems kind of silly because they probably just give it to their family.
That's what I was thinking.
And I could see him like being one to like, I guess I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that like he didn't have a mind. He was just killing people and stealing their gold because where else would they have gotten all this raw gold, right? So I feel like he had to have known where some access to gold was. I could see it being like why he's a recluse is because he found this other place and he didn't want other people to kill him or something. Mm-hmm. And I could see that he killed other people so that they wouldn't take it. I just feel like you don't like go into the mountains with like a partner that you've known forever and then come out and there's not something shady that happened.
No, and that's where I always was like, even before I had heard the conspiracy and I was just listening to like the history and background.
Like, well,
and they're like, and they went down to this mine together and then one came out and the other didn't. And they never found the other guy. I'm like, you can't tell me two people went in, one person came out, and the other person who came out had nothing to do with the disappearance. That just doesn't happen.
Or doesn't at least know.
Something.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's weird that like the two guys went and they only found one body.
It's weird that like it happened multiple times where they just didn't find somebody. But I suppose like you're in this really rugged terrain in the middle of nowhere.
Like animals could have taken it or something.
Animals take it. You get a rock falls on you and you're never moving that rock again, you know? Like I can see how it can happen, but it's just crazy to me that's like people have gone out there and searched, and there's this one gentleman who his name is escaping me, went out there when he was 66 years old, had a disability, like not good. The guy's name's Adolf Ruth, and he was like a treasure hunter. And he went out there. They searched for him for 45 days. Never found him. This might add a little bit to your story. Never found him until they found his dead body with 2 bullet holes in it. He was also shot.
So do they think they're like hiding bodies or something? Like killing them but then hiding them?
Maybe.
Or do they think it's like the mine's so like recluse that like they have to get?
I think they think the mine is so like hidden and out there that like it's impossible to find unless you know exactly where it is. But then I got a little weirded out, like, okay, all these people are getting shot, which is like creepy in its own right. But Waltz died when he was 81, and he went out there like twice a year.
Yeah.
So you're telling me a 79-year-old man
can just get out there and he's fine?
Is just climbing mountains?
Also, like, what's weird to me is like, you're telling me now we don't have the technology to do some sort of like sonar or something below the surface to find this? Like, that seems, I feel like we have the technology to be able to do that.
You would think. I don't know a ton about mining, obviously. So it feels like if 8,000 people a year are going out just by like sheer luck and happenstance
But they
you stumble across it. Like the wood board or whatever he put over top of it is like caved in and you fall. Like, you can't tell me that
but also,
didn't
if it's
happen.
like a deep in-ground mine, like how is he getting in and out?
I don't know. Supposedly there was a ladder. I don't know. And I'm like, I don't understand the cost of anything. And the reason that this mine is so popular still is that it's estimated to have like $250 million.
How do they even estimate that? That seems like baloney to me. Like, you just picked a big number and we're like, that sounds like how
That
much
sounds
sold
right.
when they can't even find it. So how would they even know?
I don't know. But yeah. So what are you thinking?
I think the guy knew where it was and he just wasn't telling anybody.
Yeah, but how do you think he acquired the mine? Do you think he killed somebody?
I could see like him and his friend like finding it together and then him being greedy and killing him. Like, I don't know if like he just randomly one day by himself found it.
Yeah. I feel like,
or I could see like he did something to help like you said, like the Apache Native American tribe, and then they like showed it to him and then he just kept going back.
Yeah. And I don't know the technological advancements of like the Native American tribes at that point in time. Like if they were using like firearms.
Well, what would it be, like late 1800s? Probably.
Yeah.
So they could be shooting him too.
Right. And I'm like, I wouldn't stop you from, I mean, I would, please don't kill anybody. But like, I'm sure that they were like, please don't walk up these sacred mountains.
Yeah, you can see that too.
So.
Or if they're just being like typical white men being assholes.
Yeah.
And they're like, stay away from my sacred ground. They're like, you can't tell me what to do. Boom.
Fucked around and found out, you know? So I just think Waltz had something to do with Weiser's disappearance and death.
Or like if he didn't do it, he at least knows what happened.
Yeah, and just was like, hee.
Yeah.
On to the next. Yeah. So that's the story of the old Dutchman's gold mine.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Fun stuff. Makes you want to treasure hunt real bad.
I like the idea of like doing that, like Outer Banks, like or like National Treasure.
I just really like geocaching.
But like actually doing it, would hate it. I don't think I'd like that.
I didn't even really like geocaching.
I don't think I've ever been.
I mean, I get the like fun of it, I guess, of like, oh, I found something. But then you have to like bring a gift because you have to swap it out.
Yeah, that's just like, to me, it kind of shitty, because what if you leave something crappy for somebody?
And I've gotten left, like, there's been times I've gone and it's been like a painted rock. And I'm like,
that's stupid.
Okay. Like, it doesn't have to be extravagant. And when I say a painted rock, I don't mean like a cool painted rock. It was like a rock painted like green.
Yeah, that's stupid.
It was not fun for anybody. I was like, Because usually I would bring like something small from the dollar store. Like, I'm not obviously like, here's $100. But like, you would find cool stuff. And sometimes you would find really crappy stuff. And I'm like, this blows. I couldn't do like actual treasure hunting. That's too much like historical work.
And like science.
Science. All right. Well, I think that transitions us to our next segment. This is our segment we do weekly, where we talk about things that Hannah and I can't stand. Our absolutely nots, our no's, our get away from these. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I started talking to you about this yesterday, but then I decided I need to wait. I watched this TikTok of this couple doing like a gender reveal.
Mm-hmm.
And they shot their confetti, yada, 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 all good, no problems. But then, like, the wife turns to go give her husband a hug.
Mm-hmm.
And the mother-in-law, so, like, the husband's mom, like, pushes the pregnant lady out of the way to give her son a hug first. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
What is
like
going
this
on?
is so then it made me think about like what my problem is like when people make special events about them when it has like that's not about you.
This is not your day. This is not your moment. This is not your minute. Like, just because someone else has a moment doesn't mean you're less special.
Mm-hmm.
It just means you. It's
not
not your
about
moment. It's not. This is not for you. This is not about you. I hate that. Because you think about it, like, I love reading, like, Reddit stories about, like, am I the asshole? Especially ones that have to do with, like, weddings. Because I think weddings bring out so much in people. And it's always the one that are, like, I don't see why I can't wear my white wedding dress
to someone
else's wedding.
Yeah.
Or, like, there was one that I had heard where this woman was marrying this guy who had had a previous marriage and had children, and the children were coming, and so mom was also, like, bio mom was also coming, and she showed up, and it was a red dress, and they're like, I don't know what I did wrong. It was like a wedding dress that someone had dyed red. So it was like this gorgeous, extravagant, all like lace dress, and she was
her
like,
ex-husband's
to her ex-husband's wedding.
Oh my god.
And then she posted on Reddit, like, the bio mom, and was like, she's just mad because I wore a nice dress.
No.
And then, like, the other lady, like, found the post and put the picture of the dress out there, and they're like, it's literally the description as a red wedding dress.
Oh my god.
And it's like, this is not your moment. Like,
no.
Also, get away. Like, stop ruining it for everybody.
Yeah, like, that's like those people where it's like, you know what you're doing, and you know it's hurting someone else's feelings, and you don't care. You're just an asshole.
You just suck. Another wedding one I saw the other day that was like, sorry, now I'm just diving off the deep end. This couple had a no children wedding because they just didn't want kids there. Yeah. And one of their, like, either was like a cousin. It was a cousin. Her kids are brats because she doesn't discipline them.
Interesting.
And she threw a freaking fit about, like, not being able to bring her children. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're not inviting any children, and especially we're not inviting your children because they suck.
We don't want your kids to come.
And she kept pushing. So finally the bride was like, blew up and was like, I don't want your children screaming as I'm walking down the aisle.
Yeah.
And so then the lady kind of conceded, and she's like, well, can I just bring my friend then? And then my husband will stay home. And she's like, yes, of course. The bride bought her dinner, apologized for, like, saying mean things about her kids. Da-da-da-da-da. Wedding day comes. They open the doors, and this lady starts screaming like a child.
Oh.
Starts, like, wailing like a baby. This grown woman. I can't tell you. I'm sorry. If I was sitting next to you and you... I would sock you in your throat. I would sock you so hard. And her friend's, like, helping her. They're, like, screaming. The lady didn't even have the wedding then. They just had the reception.
Yeah. What the hell is wrong with people?
I'm like, this is not about you. This is not.
Like, if you're that mad, don't come.
No, you don't need to be there then.
No. Oh my god.
I know. When they were like, I heard scream wailing once the doors open, I was like, that's not real. That's not real.
If that actually happened,
I'm sorry.
What an awful way to start your marriage.
That's forever going to be your wedding. Like, that's forever going to be, like, immortalized as, like, we didn't have a ceremony because you ruined it, because you screamed like a child. And then she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I got really drunk beforehand, and I guess I wasn't over it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I would never speak to her again.
No. Like, there's no coming back from that.
I am raining on every single one of your parents. I am pooping in your cereal every morning. I hate you.
I can't even imagine. Holy crap.
I know, you're welcome on that one. That one made my jaw, like, damn near dislocated, drop so low.
Yeah, seriously. Do you have an absolutely not?
Yes, I do. So, it's the time of year where it's like the humidity's starting to kick up.
It's another weather one.
It's another weather one. I freaking hate it. The heat's starting to kick up. All of this, like, nightmares. And then it's really hazy out now because of the, like, the smoke coming down from the fires in Quebec, or near Quebec. And
I hope that shows up or that comes up in the audio. If you don't know why we're giggling, my husband just made the most crazy sound.
He's playing video games. Your husband.
Okay, sorry,
That's okay. And it just feels like nothing I do in this weather is good.
Well, okay, so you know how we like had gone and gotten some wine or whatever yesterday? My friend had said that, like, in the alert, it says, like, don't do strenuous activity.
Yeah, it's awful.
And I woke up this morning, my eyes were, like, swollen shut as, like, allergic reaction to all the smoke. I took pictures of it.
Oh my god.
It's bad.
But, like, I go outside, and it doesn't matter what I'm wearing, I don't feel good.
No.
Not just because the air quality is horrific out right now,
It just
but,
humid.
like, it's humid. I'm sticky, I'm sweaty. I could be wearing damn near nothing, and I feel
Gross.
like a wet towel that has been on the floor of a gross sauna is just wrapped around me. And so then I go inside and I sit in the AC for like 0.2 seconds and I'm freezing.
Because you're so sweaty and gross.
I'm freezing. I'm shivering. I feel like I'm going to catch a cold. My toes feel like they're going to fall off. I've got goosebumps all over. And I refuse to put a coat on. Because I was just dying outside.
Yeah. I'm the, like, annoying person that's, like, 90 degrees outside, but we have our AC on, but I'm sitting on the couch with a blanket.
Oh.
Because I like the pressure of the blanket. So it's like, we can keep it a little cold so then I can put on 3 blankets.
My God, yes. I love blankets. I'm a blanket all year type girly.
Same. Well,
there we go.
Hopefully you enjoyed Emily's welcome back episode.
Woo!
She can never leave me again.
Nope. Our families are just adopting each other so we can, even though we're family, but like our immediate family is just adopting each other so we can go on vacations with each other.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't see an issue.
I don't see one either. There we go. We're just more fun as a combo.
Like a 2-for-1. You're welcome.
Yes. To everybody, you're welcome.
Mwah.
Well, hopefully you liked what you hear. Definitely follow us on our Twitter at I don't think so_EH. Got a little stumbled on my H. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.